Today, we're diving into a tale of two flights. They were separated by just 4 years, but they faced the exact same seemingly impossible disaster. One ended in absolute tragedy. The other, well, that one became known as a miracle. Okay, just picture this. You're cruising at 37,000 feet. Out of nowhere, a massive explosion just rocks the entire plane. And then you hear those five terrifying words from the cockpit. For the 296 people on United Flight 232, this was the start of an absolutely unbelievable fight for their lives. So let's set the scene. It's July 19th, 1989. United 232 is just on a totally routine flight, Denver to Chicago. Skies are clear, everything's on autopilot. And then, bam! A huge bang echoes from the back of the DC-10. The number 3 engine, the one at the base of the tail, has just completely disintegrated. Now, look, losing an engine is a serious problem, but it's not normally a death sentence. The DC-10 is built to fly on its 2 other engines. The real problem, the one that changes everything, is when the pilots grab the controls to level the plane and nothing happens. The controls are just dead. Then the flight engineer confirms their absolute worst fear. All the hydraulic fluid is gone. This massive jet is now effectively a glider, and it's starting to fall out of the sky in a slow, terrifying, uncontrolled roll. So why is losing hydraulic fluid so catastrophic? Well, think of the hydraulic system as the muscles of an airplane. When a pilot turns the yoke, it's not their strength moving those huge flaps on the wings and tail. It's pressurized fluid doing all the heavy lifting. Without that fluid, you can turn the wheel all you want, but you're not actually connected to anything that steers the plane. It's like trying to steer a car when the steering wheel has been disconnected from the tires. To stop this exact scenario from ever happening, the DC-10 was designed with 3 completely separate, independent hydraulic systems. The odds of all 3 failing at the same time were calculated to be 1 in a billion. It was considered so impossible, so astronomically unlikely, that there was literally no procedure for it. No checklist, no training, nothing, for what the crew of Flight 232 was now facing. But here's the thing. What the crew on United 232 didn't know, but one very important passenger did, was that this impossible failure, it had happened before. Just 4 years earlier, Japan Airlines Flight 123 took off from Tokyo, and it was unknowingly carrying a deadly hidden flaw. And it all came down to this, a seemingly tiny mistake in a repair job that would lead to an unimaginable catastrophe. See, years earlier, the plane had a minor accident, a tail strike on landing. During the repairs to the rear pressure bulkhead, that's the wall that keeps the cabin pressurized, a single heavy-duty splice plate should have been used. Instead, the mechanics used 2 smaller plates side by side. This mistake meant that a whole row of rivets wasn't actually carrying any load, creating a massive hidden weak spot. And with every single flight that plane took, as the cabin was pressurized for altitude and then depressurized for landing, tiny little cracks started to form around that bad repair. And they grew. Longer, deeper. It was a ticking time bomb hidden in the tail of that 747. Then, on August 12, 1985, just 12 minutes after takeoff, the bomb went off. The bulkhead completely ruptured. All that pressurized air from the cabin blasted into the unpressurized tail section like a cannon, and it blew the entire vertical tail fin clean off the aircraft. In that one moment, every single hydraulic line was severed. For 32 agonizing minutes, the crew fought with everything they had to control an uncontrollable plane before it tragically slammed into a mountain. 520 people lost their lives. To this day, it is the deadliest single aircraft accident in all of aviation history. So this was the precedent. This was the grim, terrifying proof that a 1 in a billion failure was, in fact, very possible. Okay, so let's go back to United 232. On board that flight, there was one passenger who knew the story of JAL 123 all too well. His name was Denny Fitch, and he was a DC-10 training captain, an expert on this exact plane. When he heard they'd lost all hydraulics, he knew. He knew they were doomed unless they could literally invent a new way to fly right there, on the spot. So he offered his help, and the captain, Al Haynes, immediately said yes. So with no control surfaces, the only things they had left to control were the throttles for the 2 remaining engines on the wings. By carefully, delicately adjusting the power between them, a technique called differential thrust, they could sort of crudely steer the plane. You want to turn left? You give more power to the right engine. You want to turn right? You push the left engine. It was like trying to steer a freight train with a feather, just incredibly difficult. And right in the middle of all this chaos, co-pilot William Records says this to Captain Haynes: "I'll tell you what, we'll have a beer when this is all done." I mean, that just speaks volumes about their incredible professionalism, their composure, their refusal to give up, even when they were facing almost certain death. So the crew now had one single desperate goal: get the plane on the ground. Somewhere, anywhere. Air traffic control starts routing them towards the nearest suitable airport in Sioux City, Iowa. And now, the really impossible part began: trying to actually land this thing. I mean, everything was stacked against them. They couldn't use their flaps to slow down, which meant they were coming in at more than double the normal landing speed. Their steering was so crude, they had to fly in these huge corkscrew-like right turns just to try and line up with the runway. They did manage to get the landing gear down manually, mostly just hoping the extra drag would help slow them down, even just a little bit. As they got closer and closer to the runway, Captain Haynes got on the PA system and gave the final, chilling command: brace, brace, brace. In the final seconds, despite all their heroic efforts, the plane's right wing dipped just a little too low. It caught the ground, and the massive aircraft cartwheeled, breaking apart in a giant fireball. To anyone watching, it looked like a total unsurvivable disaster. But then, something absolutely miraculous happened. People started walking out of the wreckage. Of the 296 souls on board that flight, an astonishing 183 people survived. A crash that should have been 100% fatal became this incredible testament to human ingenuity and teamwork. So you have to ask yourself, how? How could two flights facing the same impossible failure have such drastically different endings? One with only 4 survivors, and the other with 183. Well, the answer is a combination of luck, physics, and a revolutionary new way of thinking in the cockpit. Okay, let's break it down. The single most critical physical difference was the tail fin. JAL 123 lost its entire vertical stabilizer, which made the plane fundamentally unstable. United 232's tail was badly damaged, sure, but it was still attached, giving them a tiny bit of stability. Luck also played a huge role. United crashed on the flat plains of Iowa. Japan Airlines went down in treacherous mountains. But the human factor, that crew synergy, was arguably the biggest difference maker of all. You see, the incredible collaboration on Flight 232 wasn't some happy accident. It was the direct result of a new training philosophy called Crew Resource Management, or CRM. It was born from earlier tragedies that happened because of poor communication, because of a captain is always right culture. CRM changed all that. It taught crews to work as a team, where everyone, the captain, the co-pilot, the engineer, is empowered to speak up and contribute. What we saw on United 232 was a masterclass in CRM, with 4 pilots working together as one. Captain Al Haynes himself really summed it up perfectly. He said you can't possibly train for a 1 in a billion failure. It's impossible, but you can train to work together, to communicate clearly, and to innovate under imaginable pressure. You can train for the unexpected, and on that day in 1989, that training saved 183 lives. The story of these 2 flights is just such a powerful reminder that how we prepare for and react to a crisis matters just as much as the crisis itself. And it really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? When we're faced with our own impossible challenges, are we learning how to collaborate and adapt? Or are we just repeating the mistakes